pleasure to be here. As Garrett said, my name is Clint Atwater, and I live right here in Roanoke, the heart of these Blue Ridge Mountains. Now, I say that like that was the plan. That was not the plan. The plan in April of 2008 was Myrtle Beach. 2 families, 2 minivans, 2 weeks. We had spent the night let me back up. I'm a pharmacist by trade. Went to pharmacy school, moved down here in April of 2009, but I'll get to that. But I've spent the majority of my career in pharmacy administration, primarily in hospitals. Climbing, managing, metrics, doing more and more. I was pretty good at it. But I realized that it was taking something from me, a little bit at a time. And that's why this vacation, I needed this vacation so much. We had spent the night in Hillsville, got up, ate breakfast, loaded everybody back in the minivan, and we're driving and we're coming up to Fancy Gap. Fancy Gap. What is Fancy Gap? We crested that ridge, and oh my, that valley just opened up in front of me. My wife, who's sitting here in the audience, had a few words to say. Eyes on the road, please. I looked at her out of the side, and I said, the road's not going anywhere. But these mountains, this valley, the ridges, I could tell they were blue and green, and the haze was just settling into that valley. I knew then why they were called the Blue Ridge Mountains. It wasn't because somebody named it that on a map. No, it's because they were blue and there were ridges that went on forever. I remember thinking to myself, well, I guess I didn't really think it to myself. I must have said it out loud, but what I said half under my breath was, I could live in these mountains. What clearly was not half under her breath was the statement, I will follow you anywhere but the mountains. Eyes on the road, please. These mountains, it was calling me. And I didn't know what it was, but there was something, there was that draw. These Appalachian mountains. Hold it right there, fella. Did you all hear that? I say, hold it right there. It's Appalachian mountains. If you're going to say it, you best be saying it right. It's Appalachian mountains. I throw an apple at you, or you got an itch, you got to scratch it. It's Appalachian mountains. I said, okay, Appalachian. Close, Appalachian. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Who are you? Oh, well, I'm Jack. Always been Jack. That's what my mama called me. It's good enough for her, it'd be good enough for you. My name's Jack, and I grew up here in these mountains. Mama and me, we was poor as dirt, twice as common. But this here is my home, and if you're going to be talking about it, you best be saying it right. Now, how do you say it? Appalachian. Can you all say that with me? Appalachian. Thank you. So, we made our way down to Myrtle Beach, 2 weeks, sitting by the pool, having fun, enjoying ourselves. But then it was time to go back to work. It's always time to go back to work. I realized that there was something that was happening inside of me. Something had been eating away at me for a long time. Had been giving up more and more of it as time went on. I came to realize that thing was what I call Grumpy Bear. Now, that's not what anybody else called me. That's what I called myself after I realized what was going on. and I didn't much care for Grumpy Bear. Well, I can tell you a little bit about myself if you'd like to hear. Yeah, I think I would. I need a good story. Jack, do you have a good story? I sure do. This is what I told you already. We was poor, didn't have much. Mama, she told me that I needed to take old Milky White, take her down to the market. It's time to sell her. She wasn't producing milk anymore. She wasn't good for nothing. Needed to take her down and sell her, get what I could for her. And so I did. I grabbed a hold of her and we started walking on down the road. Off in the distance saw this fellow and he came walking up pretty good speed to us. Well, hello, Jack. Do I know you? Well, no, Jack, you don't know me, but I've got something I think you might like. All right, well, I gotta take my cow to the market. Oh, Jack, I got something better here. Look right here. I got me some wonder beans. Wonder beans? What you mean, wonder beans? It's how you plant them before sunset. And in the morning, something magical, something extraordinary will happen. It'll leave you wondering just what happened. Well, I thought to myself, I said, well, that sounds pretty good. So I smashed up those beans. Didn't want him to change his mind now. Handed him Milky White, and I headed on back home. I got home, and there was Mama, and I said, Mama, look. She looked at them beans. She looked at me. She looked back at them beans. She snatched them up, went over to the window, threw them out into the yard. Sent me to bed without no supper. Didn't want to mess back with Mama, though. You didn't talk back to Mama. She sent you, you win. And so I went to bed. I was lying there in the dark, and I was hungry, and I got to wondering. I wonder, what is going to happen with those beans? They were thrown out the window. Would something happen? I don't know, but I was wondering. You ever reckon you know anything about that? He said to me. Yeah, I know a little bit about that. I went back to work and wasn't too much after that. I quit my job. Just up and quit. I had had enough. Now that's not something that I would recommend. I found another job. It was different. It was okay. But I realized that the system was still the system. There was still that pull, that demand. And it ate at me. And I didn't know for sure what I needed to do, but I knew that I needed to make a change. Well, Jack, he got up the next morning and he went outside. He looked up. Oh, it was green. It was big. No, it wasn't big. It was ginormous. He looked up there, and Mama came out there next to me, and she looked up. She didn't say nothing. She just shook her head, went back into the house to make breakfast. Well, me, I started climbing. Started climbing up there. I had to find out what was up there. And so I got up there, and I started looking down, and well, the house, it was getting smaller and smaller. And the yard, it was getting smaller and smaller. And I looked up and I looked down. I decided I had come this far. I might as well just keep on climbing. So I kept climbing and climbing. Pretty soon I broke through that cloud barrier. And I looked, and over there off in the distance was the biggest house I'd ever seen. And that house had the biggest door I'd ever seen. Well, I went up and I knocked on that door as loud as I could. And the lady of the house, she came and she opened that door and she looked at me, and I must have looked hungry because she invited me in for some breakfast. And that sounded good because I hadn't had supper and I hadn't had breakfast. So I was right hungry. And so she was kind of nervous and looking around. And all of a sudden, I heard this rumbling. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Well, she snatched me up, put me in the oven fast as could be. But that oven, it was cracked just a little bit. And the biggest giant I'd ever seen came in and he sat down. He grabbed his bag of gold and he started counting them coins. Oh, he was happy. He was just counting the coins and counting the coins. Well, pretty soon, those eyelids of his, they started getting heavy. And well, he fell asleep. I knew that was my chance. And so I snuck out of the oven, went over and grabbed that bag of gold, and I ran back to that beanstalk just as fast as I could. Climbed back down that beanstalk and got home. And Mama was there, and I showed it to her. Now, gold's good. Gold spends. We ate good for a while. But I knew I was going to have to go back. Bet you know something about that, he said to me. Reckon you know? Yeah, I knew. I had had that new job. It wasn't too long. I was getting antsy for something. And I got the phone call from a recruiter. Said, I got a position that I think you'd be interested in. It's in Roanoke, Virginia. I said, well, where's Roanoke, Virginia? He says, well, it's in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Blue Ridge Mountains? I said, well, all right, let me go home and talk to my family. So I got home and my son and my wife were there. My daughter, she was next door playing. And so I pulled them together and I said, I got a call today. And they're like, yes. I said, well, it was from a recruiter. Yes. Well, there's a job that they would like me to think about. Okay. Well, it's in the mountains. Well, we think you should apply. I didn't give them a chance to change their mind. I said, I'm going to go call the recruiter fast as I can. I got out headed down the hallway and I heard through the wall, my wife saying to my son, did we just tell your father to apply for a job in the mountains? Well, the interview went well and they were going to bring me down for a on-site visit. But somewhere between that first phone call and the on-site visit, I got laid off. I got the job, or I got the offer. Making that decision was pretty easy, all things considered. We were moving to Roanoke. We were moving to the mountains. Mm-hmm. Now, I knew that I had to go back up that beanstalk because that gold, it spends, but when it's gone, it's gone. And I had seen something up there that I knew I just had to have. It was this hen, beautiful hen, and she laid golden eggs. All the giant would say is, lay, hen, lay. And she'd pop out a golden egg. And I knew that I had to have something that would sustain us. And I had to go get that hen. So I climbed back up that beanstalk just as fast as I could. Weren't nobody home. So I walked in, I grabbed that hen just as fast as I could, and back down I came. I got down and I presented it to Mama. She looked at it, nodded, didn't say much. Mama didn't have a whole lot to say. But she did tell me that I was going to have to tend to it. So I have to tend to it. What do you mean? Well, you got to take care of that hen. It's not just going to lay if you're not taking care of it. And that's the thing that, everybody wants to just get to the story about the gold without realizing that you got to tend to these things. And these things take time. Reckon you know something about that. Well, I did. I knew something about that. Roanoke was home now, and I was enjoying it, and we were adjusting, figuring life out. But I heard something off in the distance, and I wasn't sure what it was, but I had heard a sound that had me wondering. Now, it wasn't Grumpy Bear. I had got rid of Grumpy Bear. I had made the decision that when we moved into the house, Grumpy Bear was not coming with us. I figured he could go off into these here mountains, and he was done climbing and pursuing, and he could go over and he could have a good life out there in the mountains, but he wasn't coming with us. But we got down here and there was something. I heard something. Well, I heard something too. I heard the most beautiful sound And that third climb, that was the most dangerous, I tell you. But I had to have it. I attended to that hen, but there was something about that music. That music that harp played, it was beautiful. I had to have that harp. And so I climbed back up there, went in. Giant, he was asleep, and he slept a lot. But that giant, he was asleep in there, and there she was, that beautiful harp. Well, I snuck as quiet as I could over there to get her. And then I grabbed a hold, and you know what she did? She started singing, woke that giant up fast as could be. Well, that giant, he looked and wiped his eyes, and I took that harp under my arm, and I started running just as fast as I could. And that giant, he was lumbering after me. And well, I got to the beanstalk, and I started climbing down fast as I could. Mama, get the axe. Mama went and got the axe, and I swung, and down came that beanstalk. But I had the harp. Reckon you know something about that. Yeah, Jack was right. I knew something about that. I had heard that music, that allure, something was out there. And it was calling me. Well, what ended up calling me was the University of Michigan, offering me a position as an associate director at the University of Michigan. My alma mater, the title that I had wanted for 25, or since I was 25. The prestige, the salary, Michigan. I came home, told the family about it. My son looks at me, he says, he was 20 now. He had grown up in Roanoke, was becoming a man in Roanoke. And he looks at me, he says, Dad, you, Mom, Sis, you can go. I'm staying here. Mm. 3 words. I'm staying here. That hit hard. Wasn't too much of a decision. I knew that I had my harp. The music was my family. I called Michigan and said, no, I won't be coming. I'll be staying here. But I knew there was one more rung on that ladder to pursue. It was a director position right here. Came open. They gave it to somebody else. Now, Jack, he cut down that beanstalk himself. But me, I had that beanstalk cut down from underneath me while I was still on the ladder. And down I fell. But I had a choice. I could either look at the rubble of everything that had been destroyed, the mess that it had made, or else I could look forward and up to something different. I had heard that siren call of Michigan. But that's the thing about the siren calls is that you have to be able to differentiate that music from the real music, the music of family, realizing what was important. Now, my son, he's now married. Him and his wife and his 3 stepchildren live in Boone's Mill, only about 20 minutes from my house. My daughter, she's married with her husband and Floyd, our 7-month-old granddaughter. Our first grandchild. Not that she has me wrapped around her finger. That was the harp. That was the music that I was hearing. When I got to Roanoke, I joined Toastmasters, started a company or a club at the hospital. And so I joined Toastmasters. Got some really good friends out of Toastmasters. And I was talking with some of those friends, and I shared with them that what was when I got to tell a story. And I said, well, do you know anything about Sounds of the Mountains? I said, Sounds of the who? Sounds of the Mountains. And I said, Mountains? They had made sounds to me for years. They said, yeah, it's a storytelling festival over in Fincastle, Camp Bethel. Well, I came home, I told my daughter we were going, we're due, okay. And so we went out, went into Camp Bethel for Sounds of the Mountains 2018. Well, all I can tell you is that I went into the woods and I got bit by the storytelling bug. It went straight through. And my life hasn't been the same since. I went year after year and I started storytelling connections and I started, let me tell you, and all of this with the idea of having something that would carry on, something that I enjoyed, and it wasn't that corporate climb. The harp is beautiful, but it's only when you put it with the whole orchestra that you realize that that's where the real music is. And for me, it was the storytelling and my family that is making that beautiful, beautiful music, that I'm not pursuing that corporate ladder anymore. I'm happy right here in Roanoke, telling stories, getting to meet wonderful folks like you, my family close by. Now, my son tells me that he may be moving to North Carolina in a couple of years. We don't know what that means, but I have the patience because I have the harp playing and it calms me. And I'm no longer pursuing all of that. Jack looked at me and he says, well, it took you long enough to get here, but it sounds like you figured it out. Yeah, I figured it out. I don't know if I came to the mountains or the mountains brought me here, but these mountains, these Appalachian mountains, they're home. Thank you very much.